Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again. Today, we have a brand new story to share, one filled with trust, betrayal, and an ultimatum that changed everything. Let's dive in. My name is Richard, and for the longest time, I truly believed I was a good husband. I prided myself on being understanding, patient, and supportive. I wasn't the kind of man who snooped through my wife's phone or questioned her every move. I didn't start unnecessary fights or jump to conclusions. I always believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially the woman I loved. But looking back now, I realized that maybe I was too forgiving, too blind to the warning signs that were right in front of me. You see, my wife, Vanessa, had a pattern, one I ignored for far too long. She had a habit of pushing boundaries, testing limits just to see how far she could go before I reacted. Sometimes it was small things, like spending a little too much money on things we didn't need or staying out later than she promised. But other times it felt more deliberate, like she was daring me to stand up for myself just to see if I actually would. And then there was Jake. I had known for years that he wasn't just a friend. He was her ex. It didn't matter how much time had passed. Men like him don't just stick around for no reason. They wait. They linger in the background, playing the role of the nice guy until the perfect opportunity presents itself. I had voiced my concerns more than once, telling Vanessa outright that I didn't trust him. But every time, she brushed me off with the same dismissive tone. "Richard, you're being dramatic. You're overthinking it." He was like a brother to me. I wanted to believe her. So, again and again, I swallowed my doubts and convinced myself I was overreacting, that I was just being insecure. But trust has its limits, and Vanessa was about to find out exactly where mine ended. One evening, as we sat in the living room unwinding after dinner, Vanessa casually mentioned a weekend trip her old college friends were planning, a getaway to a beach house in Bahamas. On the surface, it sounded innocent enough. I never had an issue with her spending time with her friends. In fact, I had always encouraged our independence. I wasn't the kind of husband who controlled his wife or told her what she could and couldn't do. But then she said his name. Jake was going. The moment his name left her lips, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. There was something calculated in her tone, something almost expectant. She wasn't just telling me about her plans. She was testing me, watching, waiting to see how I'd react. For years, I had warned her about Jake. I wasn't an overly jealous man, but I wasn't naive either. He wasn't some harmless friend. He was an ex who had never truly moved on. I had let so many things slide before, convincing myself that fighting over it wouldn't change anything. But this time was different. I met her gaze, and in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "If you go, don't bother coming back." She blinked, caught off guard, and then she laughed. She actually laughed. "God, Richard, you're so dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. Then, like clockwork, came the excuses. "You're overreacting. Jake's just a friend. You really need to stop being so insecure." But I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't remind her of all the times I let things slide in the past. I simply looked at her and said, "Do what you want." And I meant it. She thought I was bluffing. She always did. She had no idea that this time I was absolutely serious. The morning of her trip, she moved around the house as if nothing had changed. She hummed to herself while packing, carefully folding her clothes and selecting her outfits. Every so often, she glanced at me, probably expecting me to say something, to remind her of my warning. But I didn't. I just watched. When she was done, she wheeled her suitcase to the front door and walked over to me, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek, just like she always did before leaving for a trip. "Love you," she said, her tone light, almost dismissive, as if my words 2 days ago had never even happened. Then, without a second thought, she grabbed her keys and walked out the door. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I watched from a window as she tossed her suitcase into the trunk of the taxi, slid into the passenger seat, and disappeared down the street. And the moment the taxi turned a corner, I got to work. First, I changed the locks. I had already arranged for a locksmith to come by the day before, and within the hour, the house was secured. She wasn't coming back here. Next, I packed up her belongings. Every single thing that belonged to her. Her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, every little item she had left scattered around the house was neatly packed into boxes, ready to be sent to her parents' house. I wanted no excuses. No reason for her to come knocking on my door, claiming she had left something behind. Vanessa had made her choice. And so had I. The moment of truth had arrived. The final step in closing this chapter of my life. The divorce papers. That morning, I picked up the phone and called my lawyer, informing him that I was ready to proceed with the divorce. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. This wasn't a bluff, nor was it an impulsive decision. I had given Vanessa fair warning, and she had deliberately ignored it. She had convinced herself that nothing would change, that she could go on her little trip, laugh with her friends, spend time with Jake, and return home as if nothing had happened. She believed she had me figured out, that I would grumble for a few days, maybe give her the silent treatment, and then, as always, let it go. But this time, she was wrong. I had reached my limit. I was no longer willing to be the man who allowed his wife to walk all over him. I refused to be the husband who was disrespected and still welcome her back with open arms. A line had been drawn, and she had crossed it. Now, she was about to face the consequences of her choices. The morning she was set to return, I didn't even think about her. As far as I was concerned, Vanessa was already a part of my past. The decision had been made, the preparations executed. I was ready to move forward. I assumed she was still at the beach house, enjoying the final days of her trip, completely oblivious to the reality waiting for her. But then, on the fourth day, 3 days earlier than planned, she showed up. I wouldn't have even known if it weren't for the security camera I had installed outside. During lunch, a notification popped up on my phone. Out of curiosity, I checked the live feed. There she was, standing on the porch, her bags at her feet, one hand gripping the doorknob. She tried to turn it, but the door wouldn't budge. She tried again, and again. Frustration took over as she stepped back, her brows furrowed, confusion settling in. She leaned in, inspecting the lock. Then realization struck. The locks had been changed. Panic set in. Vanessa fumbled for her phone, and within seconds, mine started ringing. I let it ring a few times before answering. "Richard," she breathed, her voice already trembling. "The door won't open." "You don't live there anymore," I replied, my tone calm, detached. "Your things are at your parents' house. Expect the divorce papers in a week or two." Silence. I could hear her shaky breathing, like she was struggling to process what I had just said. Then, desperation crept into her voice. "Richard, please, wait, let me just..." I ended the call before she could finish. A few seconds later, my phone started buzzing again. She called once, then again, and again. Her name kept flashing across the screen, but I ignored every single one. After the sixth attempt, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I wasn't interested in whatever excuse she was about to spin. Then came the messages. Asterisk Richard, please talk to me. I messed up. I'm so sorry. It's not what it looks like. Asterisk. I stared at my phone, watching the notifications pile up, but I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just felt nothing. This was the same woman who had laughed in my face when I told her not to go. The same woman who had kissed me goodbye, so sure that I wouldn't do a damn thing about it. And now she was begging me to listen. A new message popped up. Asterisk, please pick up. There's something important I need to tell you. Asterisk. Still, I didn't move. Instead, I checked the camera feed again. Vanessa was pacing on the porch now, her face red, her hands trembling. She looked frantic, running her fingers through her hair, probably wondering how the hell everything had spiraled so fast. She was crying now, yelling at the door, pleading with me to pick up. Then, after a long pause, the text stopped. Instead, a voice note appeared. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually pressed play. Her voice was a wreck, shaky, full of sobs, like she had completely lost control of herself. But she wasn't just upset. She was terrified. "Richard, please listen to me. She choked out between gasps. You were right about Jake. I should have listened to you. I swear, I never expected any of this to happen. I drank too much, and when I woke up, she sobbed, barely able to breathe. Jake did something. He recorded it. He's blackmailing me. I'm telling you now, because I don't want you to find out from someone else. Please, Richard, I don't know what to do. I need you. I swear I didn't mean for this to happen. Desperate, begging, hoping that, because she had been wronged, I would step in and save her, that I would take her back and clean up the mess she had created. I listened to the entire thing in complete silence. Then, without a second thought, I typed out my final message to her. Asterisk, enjoy your life. Vanessa, you made your choice. Now live with it. Asterisk. And with that, I blocked her. I never looked back. Not once did I check in on Vanessa, ask how she was doing, or wonder if she was okay. I had spent enough time giving her the benefit of the doubt, only for her to throw it back in my face. She made her choice. Now, she had to deal with the consequences. From what I heard, it didn't take long for her life to start falling apart. Her parents weren't happy with her. They didn't know all the details, but they knew enough. They knew she had walked out on a good marriage, that she had ignored my warnings and gone on that trip anyway, and that when she returned, her home was no longer hers. Her mother tried to be supportive, but her father? He was furious. He had always respected me, had seen me as a stable, reliable man who took care of his daughter. And now, thanks to her reckless choices, he was the one who had to take her in because she had nowhere else to go. Her friends weren't much better. A few of them reached out, sending me messages, weak attempts at justification. Asterisk, Richard, she's really sorry. You don't have to throw everything away over one mistake. At least hear her out. Asterisk. I ignored every single one. They weren't the ones who had to live with her choices. I was, and I had made it clear I was done. As for Jake, the man she had risked everything for, the moment he realized Vanessa's world was crumbling, he vanished. I'm sure he thought he was untouchable. But when she started telling people that he had recorded her, without consent, everything changed. He knew damn well he could be arrested for blackmail. And just like that, he disappeared. The guy she had thrown her marriage away for wouldn't even answer her calls. So there she was, alone, humiliated, drowning in regret. Meanwhile, I moved on. I focused on myself, my job, my future. I refused to waste a single second wondering if she missed me, if she had finally realized just how badly she had messed up. But deep down, I already knew. The endless messages she sent made it obvious. Some mistakes can't be undone. Some choices come with consequences you can't escape. She thought I was bluffing. She thought it was just an empty threat. She was wrong. And that, my friends, is the story of how my wife learned the hard way that when you push someone too far, sometimes they never let you back in. Let me know in the comments. Would you have done the same?